Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Nick and Ellen, for joining us. And Nick, I know exactly where you're at. I've got a couple of kids in the background here that I was telling Courtney before. This is the time of night when things just kind of crescendo and then melt down. And then hopefully they fall asleep. And so that's where my wife is right now. So thanks for joining us tonight. If something can be small and intimate on Zoom, that's it. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the Assabet Village Co-op Market. And then I'm going to give you kind of just a brief overview of what we're doing. And then I'm just going to screen share or attempt to screen share a very quick presentation so that you can get a sense of what other co-ops around New England look like, what kind of impact they have, and so get a good understanding of what's coming to Maynard. We are the Assabet Village Co-op Market, also known as Assabet Co-op Market. That's going to be our new name when we announce our site in a few weeks. And we are a full-service grocery store that in many ways is like any other you've ever been to. So we will have every department that you're used to seeing in a conventional grocery store. So from produce to meat to dairy, eggs, deli and cafe, fish, baked goods, bulk foods. The only differences are, number one, that we will be sourcing from dozens and dozens of local farms and food producers, so profits stay local and build a thriving local economy. And also, of course, that reduces our food's carbon footprint. And the other big difference, of course, is that we are owned by you guys, our shoppers, rather than some far-off corporation, which not only keeps profits local, but keeps control local. We now have more than 1,300 member owners, 1,321 last I checked. I see Adina is joining in here, connecting to audio. Hi, Adina. We have now more than 1,300.
Hello.
Hello. We now have more than 1,300 member owners. And we, as I mentioned briefly, we have secured our site in Maynard, an 8,000 square foot grocery store is what it will be, almost 6,000 square feet of retail. We have not announced that site yet. That will be coming in about 2 to 4 weeks. We're pretty excited, and certainly our more than 1,300 member owners are pretty excited. And our grand opening, we hope, will be right around this time next year. You do not need to be a member owner to shop at the co-op. This is a full-service grocery store open to everyone. The goal is to increase access to locally sourced healthy food. So whether you join or not after you listen to me tonight and ask questions, please, when we open, come shop. Feel really good because you're supporting local. Our member owners, we now have, as I mentioned, more than 1,300 of them and counting, and will grow into the thousands. They've each purchased a one-time $200 share in the store. There is no annual fee. It's not like a Costco or a BJ's. You pay your one-time owner share and you're done. And it's payable in $25 bits, and they get benefits for that. And I'm going to go through those benefits in the little presentation that I will do. But that is where we are right now, and that is also where we're headed. We have a capital campaign that will launch in the fall, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And like everything cooperative, this capital campaign is also community-driven and community-owned. So our member owners invest in, make a member loan to the co-op, an interest-paying member loan to the co-op, and they get to see their investment. Unlike a Wall Street investment, you get to actually see your investment make a tangible and immediate impact on the region, on your community. You will see the tradespeople building our store. You will see the architects working on it. You will see all of the local employees being hired. And of course, you will know that your investment is going to source from dozens and dozens of local farms and food producers whose food will line our shelves and feed and nourish our community. So it's really all community first and community driven, all about concern for community. Co-ops are some of the most successful businesses out there. About 70% of startup food co-ops are still thriving after 5 years in business, and with good reason, right? We build ourselves backward by design. We grow this massive, more than 1,200 member owners before we open our doors, so we demonstrate community buying power. We launched the capital campaign to match the bank's funding so that we are sustainable until we're profitable. And we do exhaustive market and feasibility studies to make sure that the site that we choose, the town, and the actual site that we choose generates solid sales forecasts based on traffic patterns and cost per square foot and regional competition and all of that. So we're pretty psyched for where we're at, and Maynard is the spot. And I can answer any questions you have about why Maynard and what the market study said and all that too. But I wanted to get into this presentation here, and then I'm just going to open it up, and you guys can just shoot. Just ask me any questions you have, COVID related, you know, whatever you got. Is it, before I get into this presentation, is there anyone, and you can, if you're having trouble hearing me or anything like that, is there anyone having trouble hearing me or seeing me? Okay, feel free to chime in on chat, on the chat thing, if you're having any trouble, or if you can't see the screen share, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start screen share here if I can, and I'm going to click on this. Click share. Okay, can y'all see that? Great. Okay, so I cannot wait. I keep asking our board of directors, when are the store renderings coming? Because I can't wait to replace our graphic that we did a couple years ago with the actual store renderings, which will be pretty exciting. But the Assabet Co-op Market, as I mentioned, this is a locally sourced, community-owned grocery store. And can I? There we go. But it's so much more than a grocery store, right? This is locally sourced and community owned. And the average co-op, the average size co-op, will be on the small end of co-ops at about 6,000 square feet of retail, but still pretty sizable. The average co-op sources from 51 local farms and 106 local producers. And by producers, we mean local food entrepreneurs, bakers, sauce makers, drink makers, all that, you know, craft beer makers, all of that kind of stuff, local producers, local food, not limited to just farm food. As I mentioned, because we are sourcing locally as much as possible, that's our priority anyway, much of our food will come with a reduced carbon footprint because it's coming from down the street rather than across the country or across the globe. And so the nice thing about that as well is you feel good because you know the food miles that it took to get there are fewer. You know you're supporting local farms, and they certainly need our help. And you know that it's coming without all the added environmental burden of all of that refrigeration, all of that those fuel miles, all of the packaging. So it's a pretty cool situation when you got a co-op and you know that it's a greener place to shop as well as being good for the local economy. And in regard to the local economy, this is what's called the multiplier effect. There's a huge economic impact to shopping at a co-op as opposed to a conventional grocery store. So for every $1,000 spent at a co-op, $1,600 is generated in the local economy. And the reason that is not only is that money going back to our local farmers and back to our owners in the form of dividends, annual owner dividends in profitable years, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But then those farms, right, and those local food businesses can hire more local workers, right? And those local workers spend more money. And those farms can then hire more repair people to repair their equipment, and they buy more equipment. And the multiplier effect is pretty significant. Of course, our main priority there is to increase access to healthy food, and we do that by providing multiple price points in the store. So when you come into the store, you will find your conventional brand milk, you'll also find your local milk, and you'll also find your local organic milk. So you can kind of choose, just like we do with organic food, where to put your hard-earned dollars. The other way we increase access to healthy food for all is a number of ways, but we will accept SNAP and WIC benefits. A Food for All program, which is pretty common across co-ops across the country, which provides an additional 10% discount on our food to low-income residents. You know, a lot of people kind of assume that local food is more expensive. And there is some truth to that with a lot of foods. Small farms don't get these massive subsidies that big corporate farms do, so they can't sell their food for less than it costs them to produce. But because you're not paying for all of that shipping and packaging and fuel miles and extra labor miles, you can actually find a lot of products that are either priced the same or even less at a co-op than you would at a conventional grocery store. Local products. Co-ops on average donate 3 times more to local charities. Worker wages are almost 20% higher. Labor costs are a big cost at co-ops. Ellen can speak to that. Ellen worked at Fiddleheads Co-op, and so she's very familiar with co-ops and labor and all that kind of stuff and how they treat their workers. And of course, this is democratically owned and controlled. We elect the board leadership, which hires the general manager, which hires everybody else. The board leadership establishes policies, cooperative policies, to ensure that we are abiding by our cooperative principles. And every year we have elections to elect board members. And then, of course, as an owner, you not only have voting rights, and I'll get to that in a second, but you can run for the board. And they're sustainable. As I mentioned, 70% are still thriving after 5 years in business. They're fantastic in terms of recycling. 74% of their food waste is recycled. So really sustainable stores on multiple fronts. We own our grocery store. That is one of the key differences between us and a conventional grocery store. And so can you. The kind of go-to phrase is everyone can shop and anyone can join. We have more than 1,300 owners and counting. It's a one-time $200 share, no annual fee, payable in $25 installments. And that covers your whole household. You're all owners. And you get great owner benefits. So one of the main benefits you get is you get a say in what farms, products, programs, and classes we offer. So if you have your favorite cheese from a Bolton farm that you want in the store, or your favorite iced tea, or you want a kids cooking class or a mushroom foraging class, or a talk by a cookbook author, or you want to round up at the register program for your favorite local charity, you own us, you tell us, and we try to provide that. In profitable years, you get an annual dividend, and that is based on how much shopping you did at the grocery store. An annual dividend meaning a chunk of money back that you can either take as money or as a credit for more food in the grocery store, in the co-op. You get weekly owner specials. So if Codman Community Farms in Lincoln has extra chickens that week, that might be one of our weekly owner specials. You get bulk ordering discounts. So there will be a bulk food section, which everyone can access, but owners also have bulk ordering discounts on staples. So if you have someone in your house, like I do, who loves Annie's mac and cheese, you can order a giant box of Annie's mac and cheese at a discount. You get discounts on our classes. You get voting rights, and you can run for the board as well. And of course, you get a grocery store, the pride of knowing that you own a grocery store that sources locally, pays good wages, reduces our carbon footprint, increases access to local healthy food for all, and builds a thriving local economy. The kind of grow fund process, this actually takes on average now 7 to 10 years to build a co-op. And as I mentioned, it's because we build it backward by design. It is no small feat. But luckily for you guys who are listening to me today, we are at the very tail end of that process. We have grown community buying power, more than 1,200 owners and now more than 1,300 owners over the past 7 years. And that's demonstrating real community buying power. It's kind of demonstrating the concept before you open your doors. You're not doing it on a whim. We fund the store with a $2 million capital campaign that is driven by member owner loans. And I can certainly answer specific questions about that. We are not on our own in that capital campaign. In fact, we're not on our own with any of this. The co-ops of old that started in the 60s and 70s, those that made it by pure grit and community buying power. We have that as well. But now we have both a regional and a national food co-op startup organization that guides us every step of the way. And for this capital campaign, they're guiding us as well. We have a professional capital campaign consultant who has worked on multiple very successful capital campaigns for cooperatives across the country. His name is Ben Sandell, and he's doing a great job for us now as our capital campaign committee trains and plans for the launch in September. And so we are ready for that capital campaign. Capital campaign is typically 6 to 9 months long. It happens in 2 phases. The first phase will be this fall, and we take a break for the holidays. The second phase launches early spring, and we finish up around May-ish, and then we will have hired our general manager this winter, and then we hire all our staff, train them, move the equipment in, and hopefully open up around this time next year. The build piece will start happening after the first phase of the capital campaign is completed. That's what you typically do, and so then that will continue throughout the winter. So when you join, and hopefully when you invest in the capital campaign as well, though you do not need to, about 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 owners invest in the capital campaign. It's all still one vote. Nobody gets extra anything for investing except you invest with a member owner loan and you get an interest rate back if you wanted to do that. But it's going to be fantastic to drive by the site, watch this thing come together, know that it's ours, and know that we have a stake in the future of not just Maynard, but the stake of the entire region and all of the local farmers and the local economy and everything. So that's that. Across New England, as I mentioned, food co-ops are thriving. I don't know if you've been to Monadnock Food Co-op. It's a great food co-op up in Keene, New Hampshire. It opened in 2013, and within 5 years, already expanding. They are now building, almost doubling their size. They were 8,000 square feet. They're going to be 14,000 square feet. There are 35 co-ops in the neighboring Food Co-op Association, the NFCA. That's the Regional Food Co-op Startup Organization. They generate collectively almost getting near $500 million, so $342 million a year in revenue. $90 million in local products are purchased each year by just New England's co-ops. 150,000 member owners, 2,300 employees. You can see all that stuff there. And as I mentioned, the average wage is almost 20% higher than conventional supermarkets. I travel around New England throughout the summer, or at least I have typically, not this year, and stop at as many food co-ops as I can. I talk to the staff there. I'm a talker, and I love to hear what they have to say about what it is to work there. They all, to a T, tell me this is like a family. I'll ask them how long you've been here, how long you've been here, how long you've been here, 8 years, 13 years, 20 years. It's fantastic. And there's a good reason for it. So River Valley Market in Northampton. This and Monadnock are 2 of the newest food co-ops around New England. This opened in 2008. It now has 10,000 member owners. They generate $30 million in sales, sourced from more than 400 local producers. I think about 40% of their sales are local products, 6.5 million in local products. So I don't know where that falls in the percentage. And they are busting at the seams like Monadnock was. And so now they're building a second store in East Hampton. They just completed a $5 million capital campaign to build a big second store in East Hampton. In terms of community impact, I mean, there's 145 employees. This is a big co-op. This is 15,000 square feet. So a little more than double what will be. 86% of those employees are full-time and they earn a living wage. As I mentioned, that Food for All program is very popular at the Northampton Co-op. 10% discounts to 600 plus low-income shoppers. And the GM, Rochelle, is fantastic. She's been with them since the start, really since the startup phase. And I mean, she's been told by multiple people, but she told us the story about a dairy farmer who came up to her crying, saying, you have saved our farm, just this one store by sourcing locally. So it's, the impact is very real. Franklin Community Co-op, this is actually 2 co-ops. So it started as Greenfields Co-op in 1977. In 2008, they expanded by buying McCuskers, which was already a small market in Shelburne Falls. This is out in Western Mass. And now they're expanding again. They have 4,600 owners, 100 staff, 200 local producers, and they are moving into this rendering right here, which had been a Wilson's department store. They're now going to occupy the bottom floor of that building, 15,000 square feet, like River Valley. And when in my other job, I'm a journalist, although this is really it for now. I'm up to my eyeballs in the co-op right now. So, but before I worked for the co-op, I volunteered for them. And one of the things I did was I wrote a story for the Metro West Daily News about thriving food co-ops around New England. And this was one that I interviewed folks at the general manager, Kim Stevens of the Shelburne Falls Agricultural Commission. And you can see, it really is more than a grocery store. This is a community center. John Williams said, people trust us to be here. We give member owners a chance to actually be economic partners in their downtown success, and it's phenomenal. And Kim Stevens said, if you have places where people can buy local products, support local farms, and bring dollars back to their communities, it's a win-win. It really is. The Belfast Co-op is another 40-plus-year-old co-op up in Belfast, Maine. Belfast, Maine is not a wealthy community, but the Belfast Co-op has been a community institution for almost half a century. They have $8 million in sales annually, 4,000 owners, shoppers from more than 30 surrounding communities. And in Maine products alone, they're buying $3 million, or rather they're selling $3 million of Maine products. And you can see they do cooking classes, and it's just a really vibrant spot. And talk about economic impact. So the Belfast Chamber of Commerce director told me that people come to town specifically for the co-op and end up staying to shop and support local businesses. That is the buoying that co-ops do. They can literally turn around communities, and they're great for local business. The road to opening day from here on forward. So as I mentioned, sometimes in the next 3 to 5 weeks, we will announce the store site in Maynard, and our plans anyway are to do it in a special way. Hopefully we do kind of an owner parade and parade by the store in our cars very safely. And come September, we will launch our capital campaign phase 1 of that $2 million capital campaign. And it's short. You want these to be quick and effective. And that is the plan. And so we're already laying all the groundwork, and we will be ready. We're basically are ready, but we're kind of finishing up the final planning of that capital campaign. It will wrap at the end of October. Everybody will have a holiday break while the store begins to be built, renovated, built, and then, as I mentioned, in the winter, we hire that general manager. We build our store. Early spring, we launch the final push for the capital campaign to push us over the top. And then around May, June, we're hiring and training the staff, moving the equipment in, stocking the store with food, lots of local food, having local trucks from local farms pull up. We have relationships already with a lot of local farmers and food producers. We plan and promote that grand opening, and then hopefully around July of next year, we celebrate. And my hope, you can guess what's coming here. By the way, that's the picture on the top there is some of our capital campaign committee. We're doing all these meetings weekly on Zoom. And below is the picture of River Valley's co-op owners literally raising the roof on their store back in 2008. It was really, I mean, that really demonstrates what this is about. It's community power. So that's where we're at. To join, typically I do this presentation in person with a table and a tent at a farmer's market, and I talk about, the farmer over here who we know or whoever, and you got to check out those berries or the honey from Hudson Hives is fantastic. So now I'm just saying, if you want to become an owner, I can't sign you up on a form today, but you can go to assabetvillage.coop, click on Become an Owner. You'll get a recap there of all the owner benefits, and there's a form there. You can fill it out. You can pay online, or if you decide to, you can also click and print out the form and mail it with a check. That's where we're at today. And as I mentioned, you do not. Why would we tell you this? Because our goal is to increase access. You do not need to become a member owner. I hope you do. The benefits are great, and that's how we build a strong, sustainable co-op for decades to come. But in any case, I hope you'll shop there, and if you want to join, you can go to the website. So I'm going to stop sharing this now, and I'm going to take questions from anyone who has questions. And I'm going to take a sip of water. And if you have questions and you might be muted, feel free to unmute yourself.
I'd like to know, aside from the money raised with the capital campaign, phase 1 and phase 2, how much money are you hoping to borrow from lenders?
Yeah, the total cost of the project is about $4.6 million. So about $2 million will come through the capital campaign, through the loans. About $2 million will be financed through the banks. And about $500,000 will come from grants. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty standard. for how we do that. We've submitted one grant application. We have another one that we're submitting. Both of them are big. I'll just give you the one that we submitted is but actually, so the one that we submitted recently, I believe, is actually a COVID-related one for a food security access grant through Massachusetts, and that's up to a $500,000 grant. And then I think we're targeting another $500,000 grant. So, yeah.
Great.
Oh, and there was a chat question there from Nick. Question: any impact on local farm students that we frequent? I imagine I frequent them less if I can buy local through you. So let me address that first, and then I'll read the second one. No, I mean, from what we hear from all the local farmers, they're psyched to have us. They're psyched for us to open because, as you can imagine, it's really difficult for a small farm, local farms, to get into a conventional grocery store. And there's good reason for that. You know, when a grocery store, there aren't many independent grocery stores left. There are more in New England than there are elsewhere because of the, commitment to local. But most grocery stores, even when you think of Shaw's or Trader Joe's or whatever, are actually owned by a handful of large corporations. And those corporations are publicly traded. And so the public shareholders who have never stepped foot in our region have margin demands. They demand a certain amount of profits every year. And what that means is, in order to do that, the corporations have to squeeze the farms that supply them, and small farms simply can't meet those quotas. They can't meet the price marks, and they can't meet those quotas. So the small farms have and the local farms have a very tough time getting into conventional grocery stores. And to have a place where they can sell to 7 days a week, year round, and of course we're not just talking about produce, because in the winter the circle for produce has to grow. Except for those few folks around here who are doing hydroponics or heated greenhouses, it has to grow. So in the winter for produce, you'll see things from down south and out west and that kind of thing. But all year round, we can source local meat, local dairy, local eggs, local baked goods. So all of these local farms and food producers are psyched to have us come around and have another place for them to generate revenue, because they don't have it now. What they have now is what you mentioned, Nick. They have their farm stands or their farm stores. If they're lucky, most don't have farm stores, but some have farm stands. And primarily they have the farmers markets and the CSA shares. So this is supplementing what they're already doing. And our goal, it is our mission to support local farms in any way we can. So if there is a small farm or a local farm that simply we can't get them on our shelf because we don't have shelf space, we are happy to promote and send folks to their farm stand for it, because that's the goal. The cooperative is about supporting local farms, increasing access to local healthy food for all. And so that's what we'll be doing. And the farms are pretty psyched for us to be coming around. The comment, interestingly, in April, we saw a big impact on being able to access a dairy product we need for a special diet for one of our kids. They were out at big groceries. Eventually, after much stress, we managed to find a local dairy that could help. Co-ops also help food security, in my opinion, and they absolutely do. I mean, if there's been one thing that has been clear throughout this pandemic, it is that local farms are the backbone of a sustainable food system. And cooperatives have been doing this. And by this, I mean building relationships with and sourcing from local farms for more than 175 years. We know how to do it, and we do it well. And what you saw during this pandemic is exactly what you talked about. The dairy industry was kind of a unique situation. Most of the big dairies, and even the smaller dairies, they're selling in these large packages that are for big distribution, so for schools and businesses and that kind of thing. And they didn't have a packaging way to get rid of that milk. So a lot of co-ops around the country stepped up and gave them a way to sell a lot of their milk and get rid of that product, rather than what a lot of them had to do, where there aren't cooperatives nearby, is dump all of this milk down the drain. So you're absolutely right. And the shelves have stayed full at co-ops much more consistently than they have at conventional grocery stores. And that is because co-ops can pivot, right? We don't have a big corporate structure telling us who to source from, how much to pay our employees, any of that, we can pivot on a dime and we can turn to our local suppliers and say, what do you have? And that's exactly what co-ops across the country have done. Is raw milk legal in Massachusetts? No. Well, not at a retail grocery store, Ellen. It's legal to sell directly from the farm. So we're happy to send folks to a local farm if folks want raw milk. Not all the local farms do it because I think there's some liability to them as well, but there are some that do it, and we're happy to send folks there if that's what they're looking for.
Can I ask the why Maynard question?
Yes, great. So as I mentioned, it's not on a whim. We've conducted exhaustive market and feasibility studies, which is not to say that a co-op couldn't work in another town. The hunger for local food around here is big. You've seen that because the farmers markets, even in the COVID crisis, are very busy when they're open. But our market and feasibility studies told us that Maynard is actually the ideal spot for a thriving food co-op. We are surrounded by towns that value local food: Acton, Concord, Sudbury, Stowe, Framingham, Wayland, a couple towns over. And we are at the intersections of major routes, so just a few miles from Route 2, but right through town passes 62, 117, 27, and of course, we're surrounded by dozens and dozens of farms, which are our suppliers. So every bit of new competition that comes into the area, the Whole Foods that came in Sudbury, the market basket that is actually coming in on the other side of Maynard, all of that competition, although market basket's really not direct competition, I can talk to that a little bit, but feeds right back into our market studies and we update it. And we're still right on track for a thriving food co-op. And if you want, I don't know if any of us is curious, but market basket tends to have a strange synergy with co-ops.
Really?
What we're told by regional food co-op startup organizations, the NFCA. And I think that's because, just my hunch, I think it's because they're still technically locally owned. I can remember growing up in New Hampshire as a kid shopping at Demoulas, and they treat their workers well. And so, but obviously very different, right? They're not prioritizing sustainably sourced food. They're not prioritizing local food. They're not prioritizing reducing our food's carbon footprint, and they're not owned by the shoppers themselves. And so the control is still corporate, but I understand why people like Market Basket. I like Market Basket. And so what it will do to our co-op is it will likely affect what we carry on some level. So rather than 3 shelves of toilet paper, we will probably have 1 shelf of toilet paper and fill the other 2 shelves with local food, because that's what people are coming to the co-op for. And I will likely jaunt over to Market Basket to buy my toilet paper and shop for everything I love the co-op for at my co-op.
Also, you mentioned for 175 years, and I was just curious, like a little history of the co-op movement.
Yeah, co-ops go back, I mean, co-ops on some level go back to the 1600s and the slaves in the colonies before they were colonies, the first slaves that came over here. And then certainly as slavery really took hold in the colonies, and there's a great book about this, I forget what it's called, and I forget the professor's name, but they were doing cooperative burial societies because slaves couldn't afford burials, so people would pool their money to bury each other, to bury their dead. But officially, in terms of food cooperatives, the first cooperatives go back to the 1860s in England. 1860s, I believe, 1860s in England. The Rochdale Pioneer Society was the first retail cooperative, and these were mill workers, if I'm remembering right, who were pooling their resources to buy basic staples that were in short supply. But co-ops in the U.S. go back a long way as well, and Cooper's Hilltop Farm, Rochdale, Mass. Oh, I imagine that's named after, like a lot of Massachusetts towns, Rochdale, England. So yeah, so that's kind of the brief history of it. But Maynard itself has a very cool cooperative history. I don't know but I haven't studied other towns. So I don't know any other town, certainly in Massachusetts, that has as deep a cooperative history as Massachusetts does. So the town was founded in 1872. My house was built in 1871 by one of the petitioners to build the town. And the first Russian and Polish immigrants to town who worked in the mill started a cooperative called the Kaliba Cooperative in the late 1800s. And then there was a Riverdale Cooperative. And then at one point, there were 8 cooperatives operating simultaneously in town, not just a food co-op. There was the United Cooperative Society of Maynard, which was in business for, I think, 70 years. And then there was a bank cooperative. There was a kids summer camp cooperative. There was a dairy cooperative. So there are a lot of, there's a deep co-op history here, and there's a lot of pride in town. And if you ask people in town, especially anyone who, looks like they might have been around as a kid in the 70s, they'll remember the co-op, they'll remember running the aisles. And we're really proud to be able to bring back that tradition to the town, but of course to have a much bigger impact on the entire region's economy and agriculture and all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I will kind of just throw this out there. If you have questions that that pop up after we close out the session tonight, you can always email me your questions. My first name is Lorne. I think it pops up there on the screen there. LORNE @assabetvillage.coop. And I am happy to answer questions. I'm also happy to chat with you by phone. I typically also offer to meet people for coffee, but I'm going to rescind that offer right now. But I'd love to chat with you on the phone or just shoot an email back and forth and answer any questions you have. It is a great time to join. I'm owner number 143. We are now up to 1,321. I have been very patient, and I'm psyched for what's on the horizon now. But you don't need to be nearly as patient. So it's a great time to join and get involved. We also have a lot of volunteer opportunities. We've got the Capital Campaign Committee. We have a Food Justice Committee that's working on ways to increase access to healthy food at our store and how to battle racism across the community as well. We have a store development committee that's working on feeding our designers owner input and doing owner surveys so that the store reflects the community of owners. We have a co-op green team that's working on how to make this store as efficient as possible. So a lot of opportunities to get involved or just to join and wait and watch it open and maybe, invest in the capital campaign and feel really good about being a member owner of your own grocery store.
Great, thank you so much. Maybe you could just put the, Assabet Co-op, assabetvillage.coop.
Yeah, I'll put that, I'll share that screen again just so that you can see.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yep, there it is at the bottom there. Yep, you can go to assabetvillage.coop, click on Become an Owner, and you'll see all the info there, but you can also just explore the website. We also have, it's a great resource. We're adding new local producers every day. Some of them will not supply our store, but like I said, our goal is to support them. So we've got them on our website. So you can search by town. You can email me if there's a local producer that you want us to add to it. I'm happy to put them up there. So a lot of resources there. And thank you guys so much. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you guys for joining me tonight and listening.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.